You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need the expensive gear. You don't need to spend thousands of pounds or hundreds of dollars on the most expensive or the best gear possible. If you haven't built yourself up to be a coach who is ready for that kind of stuff, then no matter what you have, you're not going to be able to execute. So, on a budget, you don't need a lot to get started. You really don't. Today we're going to be talking about coaching football on a budget. What you need just to get started, the bare minimums, the bare essentials. If you're going to do one-to-one, private, or your own team, this is all you need. Genuinely, you don't need a lot to get started. And we'll go into all the depths and all the whys. So let's get straight into it. So, what you actually need, let's just get straight to the point. We don't need to go around the block. We don't need to waste time. All you need is some balls. Yeah, just some balls. Depends what age group they are. So if younger kids, I think there is FA guidance on this, or whatever your football institution is, there is guidance on this. But all you need is some balls. All you need is some cones. And that's it. Just to run a basic session, all you need are balls and cones. It might sound crazy, but that's all you really need to get started. Maybe not even cones, just balls. However, cones are a nice to have. I mean, not nice to have, I'd say it's an essential. So if we're talking about essentials, I'd say balls and cones. That's it. Those are your absolute essentials to get started. Cones are cheap. You can find them online, you know, from China and stuff like that for very cheap. And balls, obviously, you probably have balls. If not, your club can lend you some. If not, you can buy some cheap ones as well. You don't need the best balls to get started. So that's all you need. All you need. You can create a lot of sessions with just cones and a ball. And we can talk through in future videos on what kind of sessions we can create. Passing, finishing, dribbling, everything. You can just do with cones and a ball. Now, when you progress, when you start making some money with coaching, when you have a bit more of a budget, and when you feel more confident in yourself, whereby you now need more to make sure, to express the kind of session you want to do, then you can start venturing out into new things. So after that, I'd say mini goals would be a good one. You don't even need mini goals to get started, but I guess the next, progression, I think, would be mini goals. Again, not the most expensive ones. I think the one I have, I got like a pair of 2, and they're like just pop-up goals with pegs that stick into the ground. I think 2 of them cost like 25 quid, 25 British pounds. Nothing crazy, but it's enough to get you going, and it's enough just as a goal. You could play a match if you have a bigger session, or you could do just one goal. You could use both goals, whatever you need. So again, after balls and cones, your next progression most definitely is mini goals. After that, you could get bigger cones, so maybe different colors. You could have the ones that go like, maybe there's a picture on the screen, but like just bigger cones instead of the flat cones. The flat cones are your essentials. The bigger cones you could get when you could dribble around them, or you could use them as goals, as targets, that sort of thing. After that, I'd say the most important thing could be maybe hurdles, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of strength resistance training, maybe you want to get bands, maybe you want to get ladders. But all those sorts of things, they're extras. They're nice to have. You don't need them to coach football. All you need is a ball and cones. One of the main things we need to understand when we're coaching, when we're starting to coach, the main value, the value of the session, what the child gets out of it, isn't the equipment, and it never will be. The value is you, yourself, what you provide, what you say, what you explain, what you tell. That's where the value comes from. And that is what we need to understand. Because all those extra things, all the expensive stuff, all the shiny stuff, even the nice, grounds, the 3V and all that stuff, you could, if you're really good at explaining, if you know your stuff, you could have 2 balls, 3 cones, some rough ground, and you could still probably do a better job than someone who doesn't know what they're doing and has all the resources in the world. So it's very important that you invest in yourself, you learn, you know what you're doing, you have a session plan designed, ready to go. You know what drill you're going to start with, what you're going to move into, what the focus is, what the objective is, all those things we've talked about before and going to continue to talk about. That value comes from you. So you don't need all that expensive, pricey equipment. It's just not needed. So I think that is, for me, one of the most important things, is that the value. The value won't come from the equipment, it comes from you. So, just to get started, as I said, balls, cones, that's it really. That's genuinely it. And especially when you're starting a football coaching business for the first time, you want to keep your costs low and you want to keep your prices higher. Depends where you're starting at. You could start at £10-15 as we talked about before, depending on what qualifications you have, as we've talked about before. So we'll try and link that video somewhere up there in the top of the screen, so make sure to go check that out after this one. However, to get started, keep it as low as possible, especially when you're coaching. Maybe when you're coaching in a team, if you have more players, then you have to invest a bit more. But the best way of doing it, I believe, is start small. Keep your session price lower, but if your costs are lower, you can recover what you've made for the equipment and get more, and then reinvest that money into buying nicer equipment. I think if you just reinvest what you're making into nice equipment, at some point, you know, when your equipment is better, when your resources are better, then you can justify offering a higher price and you can keep making money that way. So, and also, I think if you get lots of stuff, lots of fancy equipment, lots of things, you overwhelm yourself. It's harder for you to carry it, especially if you're on your own. You don't know what to do, how to fit everything in, and you're maybe not the most knowledgeable in using all this equipment. So you don't need all of it. You don't, because end up you probably won't use all of it. You know, I've made that mistake myself. I bought stuff and I've just not used it because, you know, I thought it'd be cool, thought it'd be nice, but when it comes to it, it takes too long to set up. It doesn't really fit into my design, and I can achieve the same thing with just cones. Easy example, I bought, I think a month ago, I bought ladders. You know, those like ladders you have and you step over them. It's good for like quick feet movements and stuff like that. It took ages to set up, and I just sort of thought, well, cones do the same thing anyway. I can set up cones in a pattern and Bob's your uncle. You know, you can set that up and it's easy to set up and kids understand it. As long as the point comes across, that's it. That's all you need. So ultimately, you don't need all that fancy stuff. So always just sit and think, do a stand back review, think about what you need to run a session. If there's something you desperately need, like mini goals, for example, yeah, of course, go for it. If that's going to fit into your everyday session plan, your session ideas, then go for it. But don't impulse buy, don't fall into the habit of, you know, scrolling down and just putting things in your basket and thinking you're going to use them at some point. Be realistic, be goal realistic, don't overwhelm yourself, and I think that is probably the best way to go about it. And you'll probably end up getting better outcomes for not just for yourself, but for those who you teach. Because the value, as I said, and it's important to re-emphasize, that's going to come from you, what you provide to them, what you explain to them, what they take away from it. You know, football, you need a ball. You could technically just do a session with a ball, and you could explain all the skills just with the ball, and you could run the whole session that way. Cones is nice, probably say that's essential, but keep it as simple as possible. That is, for me, the most important thing you should be doing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.